For privacy reasons, names and places have been changed. This story is inspired by true events.
In the summer of 1989, three friends, Nina Alvarez, 14, Kyra Beaumont, 13, and Zoe Chang, 12, embarked on a summer hike in Colorado's San Juan Mountains, above Silverton. During a sudden storm, they left their picnic spot to explore a nearby mine road. They never returned. Despite an extensive investigation involving former trail crew boss Hank Dillard and Sheriff's Deputy Omar Villalobos, the three girls vanished without a trace. For 11 agonizing years, the families of Nina, Kyra, and Zoe lived with unbearable uncertainty, clinging to slivers of hope. Then, in 2000, an impossible discovery was made, challenging everything investigators thought they knew. This is the complete investigation into what happened to Nina Alvarez, Kyra Beaumont, and Zoe Chang. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy this content, consider liking and subscribing to our channel. Now let's continue. The summer of 1989 held a particular vibrancy for the small, rugged community of Silverton, Colorado. Nestled deep within the formidable San Juan Mountains, the town was a haven for those seeking the raw beauty and challenging terrain of the Rockies. It was against this stunning, yet unforgiving, backdrop that three young friends, Nina Alvarez, Kyra Beaumont, and Zoe Chang, embarked on what should have been a memorable day of adventure. Nina, at 14, was the eldest, a natural leader with a keen sense of curiosity. Kyra, 13, possessed an infectious laugh and an adventurous spirit, always eager for new experiences. 12-year-old Zoe, the youngest, was observant and thoughtful, often finding beauty in the smallest details. Their bond was typical of adolescence, a mix of shared secrets, inside jokes, and an unshakable loyalty, forged in the freedom of their mountain home. On a seemingly ordinary August afternoon, the trio set out for a hike above Silverton. Their destination, a favored picnic spot near the skeletal remains of an abandoned tramway. This relic of the area's rich mining past stood as a stark reminder of human ambition against the indifferent power of the mountains. The girls spent hours enjoying the panoramic views, the crisp mountain air, and each other's company, their laughter carried on the high-altitude breezes. However, the capricious nature of alpine weather soon asserted itself with brutal efficiency. Without warning, the clear skies gave way to an ominous gathering of dark, bruised clouds, and a sudden, violent storm began to brew, its thunder echoing ominously through the valleys, quickly transforming the idyllic afternoon into a perilous one. Seeking shelter and perhaps a new adventure, the girls made a fateful decision. They chose to leave their exposed picnic site and explore a nearby, lesser-used mine road, believing it would offer a quicker, more protected route down the mountain or a place to wait out the squall. They were last seen heading towards the obscured path, swallowed by the swirling mist and driving rain that descended with terrifying speed. From that moment, on that isolated mountain road, Nina Alvarez, Kyra Beaumont, and Zoe Chang were never seen or heard from again. Their disappearance was absolute and instantaneous, leaving no trace, no struggle, and no discernible path for searchers to follow. The sudden silence that followed their last known movements quickly transformed into a chilling alarm, a desperate search beginning almost immediately as the vast, indifferent mountain swallowed them whole. The alarm sounded almost immediately. When the girls failed to return home as the storm abated and dusk settled, their parents' concern quickly escalated into panic. Local law enforcement, spearheaded by Sheriff's Deputy Omar Villalobos, mobilized what would become one of the most extensive search and rescue operations the San Juan Mountains had ever witnessed. Villalobos, a seasoned officer intimately familiar with the region's deceptive terrain, understood the immediate urgency. Every hour that passed diminished the chances of finding the teenagers alive in such a harsh environment, especially given the suddenness and severity of the alpine squall. Teams of experienced rescuers, volunteers, and K-9 units fanned out across the vast wilderness surrounding the abandoned tramway and the mine road where the girls were last seen. Ground searches were meticulously conducted, with every crevice, every thicket, and every abandoned structure scrutinized. Helicopters equipped with thermal imaging cameras crisscrossed the treacherous peaks and valleys, their powerful spotlights piercing the night, hoping to catch any sign of life. The initial focus remained on the most logical scenarios. The girls had become disoriented in the sudden storm, perhaps fallen or sought shelter in one of the many disused mining shafts that peppered the landscape. The sheer scale of the mountains, however, presented an overwhelming challenge. Visibility was often poor and the terrain unforgiving, characterized by steep drops, loose rock, and dense forest. Despite the exhaustive efforts, the search yielded nothing. There were no footprints beyond the initial picnic spot, no discarded belongings, no signs of a struggle, and no calls for help. The silence was absolute, deepening the mystery. Early theories began to circulate, each more disturbing than the last. Had they simply gotten lost, succumbing to exposure or injury in the unforgiving wilderness? Or had something far more sinister occurred? The possibility of abduction, while terrifying, could not be dismissed, though the remote location made such an act seem improbable without leaving some trace. Days bled into weeks, and the initial, hopeful search for survivors gradually transitioned into a grim missing persons investigation. The energy of the early days, fueled by adrenaline and a desperate optimism, began to wane, replaced by a heavy sense of dread. Deputy Villalobos and his team meticulously re-examined every inch of the search area, interviewed everyone who had been near the tramway that day, and followed every speculative lead, no matter how remote. Yet the mountain offered no answers, remaining a silent, imposing witness to the girls' inexplicable vanishing. The case, despite the relentless efforts, was already teetering on the precipice of becoming cold. The relentless search for Nina Alvarez, Kyra Beaumont, and Zoe Chang slowly lost its initial momentum, transitioning from an active rescue effort to a prolonged, agonizing missing persons investigation. Despite the unprecedented scale of the resources deployed and the dedication of Deputy Villalobos and his team, the San Juan Mountains offered no further clues. No credible leads emerged from the countless interviews conducted in Silverton and surrounding communities. There was no physical evidence, no discarded clothing, no signs of a camp, no footprints beyond the initial picnic site to indicate where the girls might have gone or what might have befallen them. Eyewitness accounts provided no new information beyond the girls' last known movements toward the mine road. The lack of any trace in an area so thoroughly scoured became as baffling as the disappearance itself. The mystery cast a profound and lasting shadow over Silverton. A town accustomed to the dangers of its environment, it had never before experienced a tragedy of this nature and scale. Fear began to permeate daily life, particularly among parents. The vibrant innocence of summer was replaced by a pervasive anxiety, an unspoken question hanging in the air. If 3 girls could vanish so completely, who was safe? The unanswered questions gnawed at the community's conscience, fostering a collective grief that found no closure. Candlelight vigils gave way to quiet memorials, and the posters bearing the girls' smiling faces, once ubiquitous, slowly faded and peeled from notice boards, replaced by newer, more urgent announcements. For the families of Nina, Kyra, and Zoe, the passage of time was an unbearable torment. Each sunrise brought renewed hope, quickly extinguished by the relentless silence of another day without answers. Birthdays passed uncelebrated, holidays were marked by profound absence, and the milestones of adolescence unfolded without the girls who should have been experiencing them. The initial outpouring of public sympathy gradually receded, leaving the families to grapple with their private anguish, a living grief compounded by uncertainty. The case, once a national headline, slowly receded from the public consciousness, becoming a cold file in the archives of the sheriff's department. Years bled into a decade, and the disappearance of the three friends became a haunting local legend, a tragic tale of young lives seemingly swallowed whole by the vast, indifferent wilderness of the San Juan Mountains, an unresolved mystery left dormant for far too long. The years that followed the disappearance of Nina, Kyra, and Zoe were marked by a profound silence, a void that swallowed hope and left only questions. The case, relegated to the cold files, seemed destined to remain an enduring mystery, another tragic testament to the mountain's unforgiving nature. Yet the wilderness, which had initially offered no answers, would eventually yield a single, unsettling clue years after the girls vanished. It was not a body, nor a confession, but a small, seemingly innocuous object that surfaced in the spring of 1996, 7 years after that fateful August afternoon. A group of hikers, traversing a lesser-known trail not far from the abandoned tramway where the girls were last seen, stumbled upon it. Partially buried beneath a layer of pine needles and eroded soil, caught in the roots of a gnarled ponderosa, lay a friendship bracelet. At first glance, it appeared to be a simple, handmade trinket, perhaps lost by another hiker. However, its unique composition immediately caught the attention of the finders, who, aware of the lingering local legend, reported their discovery to the sheriff's department. Upon closer inspection, the bracelet revealed its critical significance. Woven intricately into its colorful threads were strands of thin, tarnished wire. This was not ordinary craft wire. It was undeniably the same distinctive gauge and material used in the old tramway cables, fragments of which still littered the area around the derelict structure. The implication was immediate and chilling. This was not merely a souvenir. It was a personal artifact, almost certainly crafted by one of the missing girls, or for them, from materials found precisely where they had vanished. The specific nature of the wire provided an undeniable link, confirming their presence at or near the tramway and suggesting they had been alive long enough to engage in such an activity, or that the location held a far deeper, more prolonged significance than initially understood. The discovery sent a ripple of renewed, yet unsettling, energy through the cold case. Deputy Villalobos, who had never truly abandoned the investigation, now had a tangible piece of evidence, a poignant artifact that breathed new life into the dormant file. The bracelet was a silent witness, a relic from a past that refused to stay buried. It shattered the comfortable assumption that the girls had simply been lost or swept away by the storm. Instead, it hinted at a more complex, perhaps protracted, scenario. Investigators were forced to re-examine the original search parameters, scrutinizing every detail surrounding the tramway and the mine road with fresh eyes, asking if the mountain had truly revealed all its secrets, or if they had simply been looking in the wrong places for too long. The cold case was suddenly alive again, albeit with a fresh layer of disquiet. The discovery of the tramway wire bracelet ignited a desperate spark in the long-dormant investigation, compelling authorities to initiate a comprehensive cold case review. Deputy Omar Villalobos, who had carried the burden of the unsolved mystery for years, meticulously pulled every file, every report, and every faded photograph from the initial search. Maps of the San Juans, once extensively marked, were unrolled again, scrutinized for overlooked details, for any anomaly that might have been dismissed in the frantic chaos of 1989. Original witness statements were reread, not just for what they said, but for what they might have inadvertently omitted or for nuances that only hindsight could illuminate. The very nature of the bracelet, a handmade item crafted from local materials, suggested a prolonged period of time, or at least a specific interaction with the environment, that contradicted the initial assumption of a swift, storm-induced disappearance. This renewed scrutiny also brought in outside perspectives. Hank Dillard, a former trail crew boss with decades of experience navigating the rugged topography around Silverton, offered invaluable insights into obscure mining roads and forgotten shelters that might have escaped earlier searches. His knowledge of the mountains, hidden pockets, and historical structures provided new theoretical points of interest. Simultaneously, social worker Janelle Rusk, who had worked with the families in the immediate aftermath, provided a crucial human element. She articulated the enduring psychological impact of the girls vanishing on the community, emphasizing the profound need for resolution, not just for the families, but for Silverton itself. Her perspective underscored that this was more than just a police investigation. It was a communal wound that festered with each passing year. With the bracelet as a new focal point, search strategies shifted. The abandoned tramway, once considered merely a landmark, now became a potential nexus. Investigators theorized the girls might have sought refuge in its dilapidated structures or in nearby tailings sheds, areas that, while searched, had perhaps not been examined with the same forensic precision. Specialized teams were dispatched to re-examine these locations, meticulously sifting through debris, using ground-penetrating radar, and even rappelling into old, unstable shafts. Yet despite these exhaustive and expanded efforts, the San Juans remained unyielding. No further trace of Nina, Kyra, or Zoe was found. The bracelet, while a powerful confirmation of their presence, remained a solitary, poignant link, deepening the mystery rather than unraveling it. The renewed hope it had sparked began to wane, replaced by a lingering frustration that the mountain, once again, refused to speak its secrets. 11 years had passed since the San Juans had swallowed Nina Alvarez, Kyra Beaumont, and Zoe Chang. A decade of silence, of faded posters, of cold leads, had settled over Silverton, hardening into the bitter acceptance of an unsolved tragedy. The friendship bracelet, while a momentary jolt, had ultimately led nowhere, leaving the case once again to gather dust. Then, in the spring of 2000, the impossible happened. A woman, disheveled but undeniably alive, appeared on the outskirts of Grand Junction, nearly 150 miles from Silverton, claiming to be Nina Alvarez. She was 25 years old, a ghost returned from a past that refused to stay buried. Her reappearance sent shockwaves not only through the local community, but across the nation, igniting headlines and instantly reigniting the long-dormant investigation. Nina's initial statements were fragmented, a torrent of suppressed memories and raw trauma, but they quickly coalesced into a harrowing account that shattered every previous theory. She described not a simple accident or a quick abduction, but a prolonged ordeal of survival, a hidden world concealed deep within the very mountains that had held the girls captive. Her revelation centered on an ingeniously camouflaged survivalist camp, not in a cave or an isolated cabin, but within a cluster of derelict tailings sheds, remnants of the area's mining past. These structures, long dismissed as unsafe and empty, had been transformed into a self-sufficient, isolated compound, meticulously hidden from aerial and ground searches for over a decade. But Nina's testimony went beyond her own astonishing survival. The most disturbing discovery she revealed was the existence of a ledger, meticulously maintained within the camp. This was not merely a journal of daily activities. It was a chilling record of admissions. The entries, cryptic in their brevity, detailed names, dates, and sometimes the circumstances of individuals brought into the camp. As investigators, including a stunned Deputy Villalobos, began to cross-reference these entries, a horrifying pattern emerged. Several of the names and dates in the ledger appeared to correspond with other documented disappearances from the wider Colorado and New Mexico region over the preceding decades. Nina Alvarez had not merely returned. She had returned with the key to unlocking a far more sinister and widespread operation than anyone in law enforcement had ever dared to imagine. The vanishing of 3 girls in 1989 was no longer an isolated incident, but a single thread in a much larger, darker tapestry of missing persons. The revelation from Nina Alvarez ripped through the quiet investigation like a thunderclap, instantly transforming a cold case into an active, high-priority manhunt. Her fragmented but powerful testimony provided law enforcement with a precise location, a hidden world concealed in plain sight. Within hours of Nina's account, a formidable contingent of sheriff's deputies, led by a grim-faced Deputy Omar Villalobos, converged on the remote area Nina described. Navigating the treacherous mountain terrain, they located the cluster of derelict tailing sheds, long dismissed as uninhabitable remnants of a forgotten mining era. Nina's words proved chillingly accurate. These ramshackle structures, ingeniously camouflaged by overgrown vegetation and natural rock formations, housed an elaborate, self-sufficient survivalist camp, a testament to years of meticulous planning and isolation. Inside the grim confines of the camp, the full horror of Nina's story began to unfold. The most damning piece of evidence, exactly as Nina had described, was a ledger. It lay on a crude wooden table, its pages filled with meticulous, handwritten entries. This was no ordinary journal. It was a chilling register of admissions, documenting individuals brought into the camp over a span of decades. Each entry, terse and clinical, listed a name, a date, and sometimes a brief, disturbing note on the circumstances of their arrival. As investigators began the painstaking process of cross-referencing these records with historical missing persons reports, a horrifying pattern emerged. The ledger contained entries that corresponded with numerous other documented disappearances, not only from the immediate San Juan region, but also from wider areas across Colorado and even New Mexico. The vanishing of Nina, Kyra, and Zoe was not an isolated incident, but part of a much larger, more sinister operation. While Nina's miraculous return brought a measure of hope, the immediate focus of the intensified investigation at the camp shifted to the ultimate fate of Kyra Beaumont and Zoe Chang. Their names were undeniably present in the ledger, their entries mirroring Nina's, confirming their presence at the camp after their initial disappearance. The search within the sheds and the surrounding area became a desperate mission to uncover any trace of the two remaining girls. Nina's survival had shattered the decade of silence, but her harrowing revelations also unveiled a long-standing, hidden threat within the mountains. The investigation, now dramatically expanded, was no longer confined to 3 missing girls from Silverton, but encompassed a disturbing network of disappearances, a chilling conspiracy unearthed by one brave survivor. Justice, long delayed, was now being sought on a scale far greater than anyone had ever anticipated.